Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third annual digital consumer event, which is hosted by the Parliament. I'm very pleased to welcome today Commissioner for Justice Didier Reynders, who has kindly accepted to make the opening speech and put today's event and the work on digital consumer fairness into the wider perspective of the EC consumer policy. The chairman and the members of the European Parliament's Committee on the Internal Market and Consumer Protection, so IMCO, will give us the views prevalent in this House, which is today our host. And I will also welcome Mrs. Chair, Mrs. Cavazzini, as well as all the honourable members who are with us today. I'm also very pleased because we have with us today the signatories of the pledge, so 11 large and mid-sized online marketplaces, which have already committed to specific measures and reporting in the area of product safety through the Product Safety Pledge Plus, and they will today sign additional digital fairness commitments. I'm also pleased because we'll have the possibility to listen to eminent speakers from consumer and business associations, national authorities and academics, and for the two panels on the burden of proof in consumer law and on the addictive design of digital services. So the Commission chose these two topics for this event in view of the importance in the ongoing assessment of the fitness of EU consumer protection law in the digital age. So I'm really looking forward to our discussions today, as much as the formal ceremony of the marketplaces committing to this new consumer protection pledge. So before we start off today's exchanges, let me give you a bit of organizational information. So today's meeting is in three parts. After the speeches from Commissioner Reynders and the chair, Mrs. Cavazzini, we have the pledge signing ceremony, followed by panel discussions on the burden of proof and addictive design. And for these substantial discussions, we invite you to submit your questions on Slido. We have reserved about around half an hour per panel to address your questions. We will have then a coffee break after the pledge signing ceremony, and we will be using Slido later. So everyone is welcome to send in their questions for the panel at any time they like. And you're also welcome to post messages about this event on your preferred social media. So now it's my pleasure to welcome and invite Commissioner for Justice and Consumers, Didier Reynders, to speak.
Merci, Isabelle. Honourable member of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to see so many of you attending this third edition of the annual Digital Consumer event. It has been 3 years now since the adoption of the new consumer agenda, and I must say we have accomplished so much already. We have strengthened our legal framework and advanced towards our Green Deal objectives. In September, we reached a political agreement on the new directive to empower consumers for the green transition. We have also put forward new rules on the right to repair, green claims and eco-design of products, fostering sustainability and repairability of products sold on our European market. These proposals are currently being discussed by the EU co-legislators, and the same goes for the digital transition. Our new rules on consumer credit and on the directive on the distance marketing of financial services will protect consumers in the highly digitalized and fast-evolving financial services sector. And the new General Product Safety Regulation that entered into force in summer this year ensures that the same safety requirements apply whether a product is bought offline or online. The Modernization Directive has made a number of important amendments in the digital field and has improved enforcement. In fact, ensuring effective enforcement and redress for consumers is also one of the priority areas of the new consumer agenda. We recently put forward a revision of the rules on consumer alternative dispute resolution. The Commission has also adopted a recommendation on the private dispute resolution systems, detailing quality criteria for dispute resolutions provided by online marketplace and EU traders associations. And we continue working on improving the consumer protection cooperation regulation, which is, of course, the key tool when it comes to enforcement of EU consumer law. And you know that to have a set of legislation is fine on paper, but enforcement, of course, is of the essence in all the regulations that we try to implement in the European Union. But while a lot has been done, we need to go further to protect consumers from the emerging challenges online. For this purpose, in spring 2022, we launched the Digital Fairness Fitness Check with one clear objective in mind. We aim to identify the gaps in our consumer protection framework and determine whether it is sufficiently adapted to tackle issues emerging in the online environment. This, of course, raises many further questions. Are the current rules sufficiently clear to tackle dark patterns or misleading practices of certain social media influencers? Are EU consumer laws coherent with new legislation such as the Digital Services Act? The Digital Fairness Fitness Check will address those questions and many more. This year, we continued gathering evidence to understand the extent of the reported problems, the different views of stakeholders, and the ability of the current legal framework to effectively address these issues. We received valuable feedbacks and benefited from consumers, SMEs, and other stakeholders' perspectives through different targeted surveys. I'm glad to see different member states also drawing the attention to this pressing issue by organizing events on digital consumer protection issues and encouraging their peers to share their priorities for the fitness check. And I want to say that I'm also very pleased to see that in many member states we have tried to develop the same consumer agenda than the new consumer agenda at the EU level. I'm hoping that it will be the same for the next years with the new consumer agenda that we will prepare, not only at the EU level, but also in the member states. And this annual digital consumer event is yet another opportunity for you to share your views on two specific topics addressed in the fitness check. First, we see growing attention given to digital addiction and how the design of online services impacts consumers. Indeed, some companies that want to maximize the amount of time, money, and engagement from consumers are introducing functionalities such as endless scrolling and the autoplaying of videos. But where can we draw the line between legitimate business practices and practices that hinder consumer protection online? In that quest, I welcome the recent draft report on addictive design of online services by the IMCO Committee of the European Parliament. I want to thank the committee for taking the initiative in launching a public debate around this topic. Second, in relation to effective enforcement, again, do we need to adapt the current rules on burden of proof to improve the position of consumers and enforcers in case of problems? For example, in complex infringement cases that involve algorithms, only the company knows how their digital services work, while the consumer would not be able to prove anything. I look forward to hearing from your answers to these questions in today's panel discussions. While we continue to assess and propose new legislation where appropriate, we are also exploring other tools to ensure fairness for and safety of consumers. I strongly believe in voluntary commitments by businesses to be an efficient tool to impulse sectoral changes. They can help bridge the gap between the interpretation of what is in the law and the reality for consumers. I'm therefore delighted to announce that over the past 2 years, the 11 online marketplaces that are already signatories of the Product Safety Pledge Plus have negotiated additional digital consumer rights commitments. These commitments go beyond the existing requirements in EU law to enhance the consumer protection. For example, those marketplaces have committed to providing a simple, transparent, and easily accessible option to withdraw or cancel a contract. Today, they also commit to keeping a human operator contact point for those using chatbots and other automated tools in their communication with consumers. They commit to facilitating the compliance with consumer rights of the different third-party traders that they are working with, for example, by developing, promoting, or making material available to them. Signatories also commit to including in their contracts with influencers or their agencies an obligation for influencers to state clearly the commercial nature of their content. And I will say it is important for all the consumers, but certainly more and more for the vulnerable consumers, and in the vulnerable consumers for the children. It's quite important to have such a kind of information about the commercial nature of the relation with some people trying to influence the behavior of young consumers. Signatories clarify how the existing legal requirements regarding fairness and transparency of consumer reviews should be implemented, in particular regarding the prevention of fake reviews. What is common to all of these commitments is that at this moment they raise the bar for consumer protection. I'm therefore grateful that today we can expand the former Product Safety Pledge Plus, which we signed at the Consumer Summit earlier this year. By doing so, we are integrating the Product Safety Pledge Plus into a wider consumer protection pledge. Hopefully, this development will have an impact also beyond the current 11 signatories, to whom I'm grateful for being the first to make this important step. I hope that their initiative will motivate also other online players, platforms and sellers to implement a higher level of consumer protection. Before concluding, please allow me a few words on another related initiative, namely the Cookie Pledge, on which we are still currently working. The objective is to address the issue of the so-called cookie fatigue and to provide consumers with clearer information and a better understanding of digital advertising models and personalization techniques. The pledge is a voluntary initiative again, involving stakeholders of the digital field. It will be based on high-level principles that should respect consumer law, the GDPR, and the e-privacy directive. We hope to share draft principles of the pledge with stakeholders before the end of 2023, so that the initiative can be successfully concluded at the next Consumer Summit in April 2024. Talking about the Consumer Summit, I'm looking forward to seeing many of you here. Let's keep the momentum, and as I look forward to hearing from your ideas and observations on the ground. And please join me in congratulating the signatories, of course, of the new Product Safety Pledge Plus for their exemplarity and commitment to consumer protection offline as well as online. It's one of the goals to give the same protection online that we have given since some decades now at the EU level offline. And I want also to repeat that if we are moving forward with many legislations, it's very important to continue to work with voluntary commitments. It's a very good balance between what we are doing in the text with new legislative provisions and then additional commitment from different companies to go further. And then, of course, after the pledge, it's possible to introduce some new requirements in the legislation. So there is no contradiction between hard and soft law. I'm sure that a mandatory approach is complementary with the voluntary approach, or the reverse is the same. But thanks again for such an opportunity to explain what we have done and what we will do in the consumer protection field. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Commissaire. So we will now have the pleasure to thank you, honourable members, hosting us today in the Parliament. And I will therefore give you the floor now, MEP Andreas Schwab, with you are the EPP coordinator.
Thank you so much, Madame la Présidente, Monsieur le Commissaire, chers collègues. First of all, it's a pleasure that you are here in the Parliament. We apologize a bit that we have given you this room, which is a bit at the end of the corridor, and it's dark. That's not what has happened in Consumer Policy, Commissioner, in this term, and therefore we should be enlightened by the legislation that we have been passing. So I have been listening to you very well, Commissioner, and I'm for sure joining you in congratulating those that have signed the new Product Safety Plus pledge. That is good news. Because we believe in international trade, we believe in open markets, but that can only work if consumers can feel always safe when acquiring products. But it's the same also for services. And I think, turning also to my colleagues, that we have done lots of legislation in this term to make sure that we fight and we face the complex and ever-evolving digital technology, and it has been imperative to all of us to ensure that the protection of digital consumers is as important as the protection of those that shop offline. However, there are still some issues that we are having to face. It's one, you mentioned it, the disinformation and illegal content, and secondly, the risk of digital addiction. I think it's important to speak about these concerns, but at the same time, we should not overestimate that the risk of addiction is not only happening in a digital context. And for that reason, legislation also on this should be balanced, and we should always remind ourselves, but also consumer associations and the Commission, that in the end, it's also a personal choice how you behave, and we have to strengthen the personalities of people, first of all, before entering into regulation and further rules. This doesn't mean that we haven't gone further and far this time. We have been doing the Digital Markets Act, we have been doing the Digital Service Act, we are about to finalizing the rules on political advertising, we are speaking about green claims and a lot of other legislation. We have done the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive and included dark patterns there. And for this reason, I think together, and I hope a bit also from this meeting today, we can see how the implementation of all this will help and what the gaps may still be. But I cannot hide to you that those that I represent here in this House, my citizens in the Black Forest, are scared that we overdo it. And for that reason, I think we need a bit of time now to digest, to implement, and then to assess newly. And for that reason, I think our meeting today is very timely. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your comments. Duly noted. So I give the floor now to Honourable Member René Repasi.
Merci la Présidente, Monsieur le Commissaire, dear colleagues, and all those that indeed pledged to the Product Safety Pledge Plus here in the European Parliament. I welcome very much the initiative to take what we have achieved in the last years further by voluntary commitments. In this we are entering, I think, something that is very important for us as legislator and for the regulator to observe. It's a general question on the extent to which private actors that understandably in a liberal open market democracy pursue their private interests are able to enforce public interests even if they are going against their private interests. Research has shown that whenever that was tried, it was not that successful. But as a social democrat, I'm open to be convinced of the contrary. And as my learned colleague from the PPE said, we had a lot of things done in the last years that is to be digested and therefore to be observed, being ready to assess after a certain period of time whether more is needed. Online marketplaces, online platforms play here a crucial role. That is different what is now if you compare it to 10 years ago or even longer. And their role, I think, cannot be underestimated. Hence, they have to show that they take on, that with big power comes big responsibility, and that they mean it seriously, to which they pledge in a voluntary manner. In the product safety regulation, we had lengthy discussions on the role that online marketplaces should take in protecting consumers against defective products. And we agreed by majority to restrain ourselves in order to see whether on a voluntary basis those online marketplaces are able to deliver. But let's also be clear. If we can see after a certain period of time that they do not deliver, we have to take another step. The Digital Service Act is no maximum harmonization. It is not the end of regulation. We can go further, but I admit we have to see how things do develop. We see that a big disease in the internet is that consumers are misled by what is called dark patterns. And I welcome that the European Commission is looking in the digital fairness fitness check into this particular matter. Self-regulation has proven itself not working in this particular kind of field, and more is necessary. So in that sense, we will see where our product safety pledge is bringing us. One thing is clear. Europe is committed to open markets. Europe is committed to fair competition. Open markets and fair competition require a fair balance of power, and that everybody who is acting on this market do feel safe. That's the interest of the big players and of the small players. I believe that the Product Safety Plus pledge can bring that, but we have to observe whether it actually achieves these goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Well noted. And now I give the floor to Kim van Sparentak for the Greens.
Thank you very much. And I just got a message. I really need to apologize for our chair not being here. She has an urgent matter in Berlin that she has to deal with, so she apologizes very much. Yes, and thank you so much for being here, Mr. Reinders, dear colleagues. I'm really happy what we have done in the past years. I think we have really shown that Europe cares for their citizens by actually doing more to protect consumers. And I also am very happy to see that the Commission doesn't feel that they've already done too much or enough, because we're still seeing problems, especially when it comes to the digital field. We really see that there is still an inequality of protection, whether you buy something in a real-life store or whether you see something online or whether you get an ad in the offline world or online. There is a major difference there. And I'm very happy to hear that the work on the digital fairness check is continuing and that you're welcoming our report on addictive design. I think what we have done so far is really looking at the overall work of, the internet. But now it's time to look at the design of the devices and, as you said, see whether we can change the burden of proof. Because all the armies of smart psychologists and engineers that they have in Silicon Valley that create these apps, you have to be a pretty strong consumer to actually stand up against that. And those are the moments when there's such an imbalance of power that we have to step in as legislators and make sure we protect our consumers against the unfair commercial practices. So thanks again for welcoming our report, and I'm very much looking forward to the outcome of your digital fitness check. But I think there's also still other things that I'm happy that probably also in the next mandate we will work on. Take, for instance, your right to buy a movie. If you buy it on a DVD, you can watch it everywhere in Europe, but when you want to watch it online, suddenly when you cross a border, it's not available for you anymore, whilst you're still paying for your Amazon Prime or your Netflix account. So this is also one of the things where we really, really have to make sure that we protect our consumers and we make sure that whether you're online or offline, we are safe. Because no one thinks about whether it's safe to buy a product anymore in Europe. And that's a good sign. That's a compliment for us. That's because we have ensured that products are safe. Online, people are still concerned sometimes, and we're still seeing the negative effects of things that are coming into Europe and that are not being checked enough. So thank you so much for all the work you've done, and I'm looking forward to collaborating on you in the future.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker from the Parliament today, Madame Virginie Joron.
Merci Madame, merci Monsieur le Commissaire. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome to this digital event celebrating innovation and technology. In this ever-evolving digital world, we have come together to explore the latest advances that are transforming our lives. Whether it's artificial intelligence, connected objects, or virtual reality, this event offers an exceptional showcase of the trends that will shape our digital future. Filling our income tax, banking, booking as doctor appointment, or shopping online. In less than 2 decades, the Internet has become an indispensable tool in every European household. This digital revolution, which has changed the way we behave by facilitating access to numerous services without having to travel, has made life easier for the most geographically isolated people, provided they don't live in one of those black spots where you can connect to the networks, and provided they have mastered these new languages. But there is a risk of social breakdown. The digital divide has time a bomb for 16 million French people. Digital consumer protection is therefore crucial. We need to reinforce data confidentiality measures, ensure transparency of offline commercial practices, and promote the security of electronic transactions, while ensuring digital access for all and according to their needs. Let's embrace these opportunities and pave the way for exciting era and technological discovery. Thank you.
Merci. So I will now invite Commissioner Renders to react to the comments from the honourable members and also to announce the Consumer Protection Pledge.
No, thanks, and thanks for your remarks, because it's true that we need to continue to pay attention not only to the situation of the consumers online, but also offline. Of course, I said all the time that we need to have the same protection online and offline, but of course the reverse is also true, and we have some concerns about different situations offline. But it's true also that we have worked more and more with the platform, because the online marketplaces are more and more important, and certainly it was the case during the pandemic, but it's also the case after the pandemic, and it will be the situation that we'll have to face during the next years. And in such a situation, we need to, it's true, to organize a balance of powers, you said, about the consumers and the businesses. And I know that there are till now differences between the capacity of many consumers and the capacities of some kind of engineers in the different major tech companies. But we will continue, and the fairness fitness check is a good instrument to try to see what is needed, and I have taken care also of your report. But it's also important to add the security issue you have mentioned on Internet. We are speaking a lot about cybersecurity, but the first one is maybe the security of the users of Internet when they try to organize some transactions and want to conclude some contracts with different kind of companies. And again, we will continue to work on it, but is the reason why it's so important to see with the professionals in the sector what is possible to do. It's one of the goals that we have in the different pledges that we try to organize for the green transition, for the digital transition too, and I have announced that we'll continue to do that in different ways. And thanks for all the different exchange that we have had to try to go further in such a way. It will be an important part of the mandate of the next Parliament and the next Commission to start a new consumer agenda with, I said, the enforcement, but certainly also some new regulation. But I'm so pleased, of course, to welcome, I said today, the 11 signatories to the new Consumer Protection Pledge. The signatory companies originate from Europe, as well as United States, China, and Japan. I introduced the pledge in my speech a moment ago, and there is no need to repeat myself, but here's just a little bit of background. When the Product Safety Pledge was first signed in June 2000, 2018, it was a new tool for the Commission in consumer protection, and it had its share of opposition. Since then, the Product Safety Pledge has shown its value. When the current Enhanced Product Safety Pledge Plus was signed in the Consumer Summit earlier this year, the same 11 online marketplaces were already discussing a further extension of the pledge to other consumer rights. And I'm very glad that today we have achieved this further extension. Indeed, today, the signatories mark their commitments, namely on easy exercise of the consumer's withdrawal and contract cancellation rights and consumers' communication with the marketplace and its sellers, transparency of reviews and influencer marketing, and the promotion of knowledge on consumer rights among their sellers. Transparency and information are very important in the way we are going forward, and I thank you for such a kind of additional commitment in comparison with the legislation that we have already in the EU. A pledge may not replace good legislation or its enforcement, but what this pledge does is that it demonstrates the clear interest to go one step further in the interest of consumers. And I'm happy, of course, to invite the 11 signatories to officially sign, I'm sure the table's there, the new Product Safety Pledge Plus. And thank you for your collaboration. It's also a way to prepare maybe the next legislations that we will have to discuss in the next mandate of the Parliament and the Commission. Thank you very much, and please, you may sign the pledge.
Merci, Monsieur le Commissaire. So now, for the choreography, I'm going to invite each of you to stand up and sign. So the first person I'm going to call is Mr. Éric Pelletier, representing AliExpress. Éric Pelletier is the Vice President and Head of the International Government Affairs. I will then invite also Magdalena Pietsch for Allegro. So you will be signing one by one and then going to the tables on your right, please. I'm also inviting now James Waterworth for Amazon. For bol.com, Mr. Jon Palm. For C-Discount, Madame Cécile Barato. For eBay, Stefan Kravitz. For eMag, Mr. Oleg Roybou. For Etsy, Jeffrey Zubricki. For the Yum Company, Mrs. Tatiana Murzabeva. For Rakuten France, Monsieur Benjamin Mout-Caruel. And for Wish, Mr. Maurizio Monico. So thank you to all of you. Indeed, last but not least, so we now have the proof that you have all signed. And we're happy to ask you 3 questions. So it will be 3 questions to the signatories. Please keep it short, so 2 minutes max each. The first question would be, how can marketplaces assume more responsibility towards consumers for transactions taking place on their sites? Consumers who buy on the site of the platform probably expect that. Who wants to reply to this? Someone from Wish, eBay, Etsy?
I guess I'll start. So first of all, thank you so much for hosting us here. Thank you for the partnership, Commissioner and team. It has been a pleasure to work with you guys on this. As we look into this, and as we look into e-commerce, we have seen that specifically in Europe, like 3/4 of the citizens have bought something online throughout the year. And we see this growing year over year. With this growth, we're also seeing e-commerce evolving. Wish has been evolving with that. Like over the last 2 years, we have gone through a major transformation as to how we serve our users. As we think through like what technology has enabled so far, a lot of the investment has been on how do we allow users to browse, how do we allow users to find the products on our platform. And we have done a lot of investments on this in terms of trying to avoid issues from ever actually happening by introducing the right product with the right credentials. Now, although a lot of the AI and technology is being built for that, there is a lot of space for us to continue to improve. If you think about the post-order experience, this is one of those areas that we are still investing in. There is a lot of benefits in there. For example, at Wish, our chatbot that actually does support takes care of about 60% of all the inquiries automatically. But 40% of them are actually still dealt by a human that's actually ensuring that those users have the proper experience, have the best experience possible on Wish, and obviously continue to be a returning user. Continuing to educate our users, getting them to understand the rights, getting easy access to the rights they have in specific locations or where they are applicable is something that we have been paying a lot of attention on Wish and something that we have been introducing as we continue to evolve our program. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So anyone, Etsy, eBay?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity today and for the opportunity to be here. Jeffrey Zubricki with Etsy. We're very appreciative of the great work that the Commission has done on this and many of its consumer protection efforts over the last couple of years, and happy to partner on behalf of consumers here in Brussels and across the EU. I think the question as it relates to consumers and the experience on transactions a little bit about Etsy. So Etsy is a marketplace where items are vintage, they're handcrafted, they're designed by the sellers. It's a very different type of place. These are handicrafts. These are very different types of things. We're in the era of kind of mass production. We really think of ourselves as the antidote. And the key part of that is human connection. Our mission is to keep commerce human. And that's a part of what powers that is our seller community is very different. These are creatives. These are artisans. These are makers. They are primarily women. They're primarily shops of one. And they're mostly working from home. They're all over Europe in communities large and small. But what we love to think about on Etsy is that we provide a global platform for our over 6 million sellers, many of those here in Europe, to be able to sell to 100 million buyers. And human connection, again, is critical throughout all of that. And so that starts with thinking about how we educate our sellers. So educating our sellers with strong policies and bringing it to the level where they can understand their responsibilities as sellers. Again, Etsy is a marketplace where we're connecting buyers and sellers. We're not necessarily in the position of handling or fulfilling those items or shipping those items. So that is connection that is directly between the buyers and sellers. And it's really important because so many of the items on the site are co-created. So when you're a buyer coming to Etsy, you might see something that a seller is making, and you might look at that and say, can you make it like this? Can you paint this painting this way? I have a picture of my daughter. I'd love to paint it for her birthday and have it as a special moment for her. And so there's a lot of human connection. So educating sellers, making sure that we have strong policies and teams in place from an enforcement perspective for trust and safety, thinking about how we go about creating a safe environment for our customers. But ultimately, we know sometimes it could happen where maybe that painting wasn't the right way or didn't come out the right colors. You might have an element of the customer having an issue. And so we come in with a customer buyer protection program where there's human connection. And if there's ever an issue in a transaction, Etsy steps in to be able to make sure that that is remediated. But throughout all of that, we think human connection is critical. So we offer means of email, telephone, chat services. But being able to connect with someone we think is really just as important from a customer service perspective as it is from the ability to buy something from a real person who's making that for you too. And so again, keeping commerce human is what we do. And we're very proud of the work that the Commission has done and look forward to partnering in the future.
Thank you. For eBay, and I will ask you to be a bit shorter. Thank you.
Yes, no, I will be very short because what I was about to say has been said before by the two other platforms. But I want to just add one more element to this under the title "It Takes Two to Tango." What I really like about this last part of this new part of the pledge is that it focuses even more on the consumer. And eBay has always been extremely strongly in favor of a cooperation between the two sides of this coin, the marketplace platform and the consumer. And therefore, we're very, very happy that there is now more consumer involvement also in the pledge. And we're very much looking forward to working on our pilot project, which is a direct cooperation between consumer organizations and the marketplace platform, so that we can become even more efficient in responding to consumer expectations, consumer needs, and make our sites more safe and trusted for the consumer. But always, like with what we do with rights owners under the MOU on counterfeiting, working with the two sides that are part of this equation, the consumer on the one hand and the marketplace on the other hand.
Thank you very much. For now, the second table, so with the second question that will be addressed to Allegro, Cdiscount, Bol.com, and eMag. From the point of view of a local European champion, when you started expanding across borders, what measures have you found most effective in the context of the European market to inform and train sellers on EU consumer protection law?
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Magda Piech. I represent Allegro. Thank you for this question. Indeed, Allegro, after more than 20 years of activities in Poland, in June this year, expanded to Czechia. So we developed Allegro CZ. And in this context, and your question about informing merchants, we found very useful a tool that we developed earlier, which is Allegro Academy. Allegro Academy, it's a huge expertise knowledge hub that we created especially for our merchants, where they can find a huge amount of webinars, online courses, and even podcasts, where we explain, first of all, how the online marketplace works, how the registration works, what formalities they need to meet to start selling or list an offer. But we also explain how they can use analytical tools or advertising that we provide. On the top of that, and it's becoming more and more important as the new legislation is coming in, we also do a lot to explain their obligations, both for Poland, but especially in the context of international expansion. When they start selling to Czechia, they need to meet certain VAT-related requirements or extended producer responsibility requirements. So we work a lot with our expert. We have a lot of internal expertise that we share, and you can very often see our employees explaining actually how certain things work. But we also are very creative in engaging external experts, lawyers, authorities, NGOs, so that they can explain to merchants merchants what are their obligations. So Allegro Academy was launched a few years ago. It proved highly useful during COVID pandemic, when we've seen 1 million users entering the platform at times where offline sales were simply shut, right? So even this year, 50,000 merchants undertook the online courses. So to your question, and in the context of this pledge, we see that best practices and creative solutions that we created to one market allow us to scale it to international expansion. And I think it also adds to this discussion on how online marketplaces, in the role of online intermediary, can introduce more and more creative solutions to educate and increase trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from Cdiscount, Bol.com or eMag?
Yes, thank you. My name is Cécile Barato. I'm here on behalf of Cdiscount. First of all, it's a true pleasure to be here. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the DigiJust team, because we had numerous constructive meetings over the years, so it's very pleasuring to see it come to a conclusion today. So Cdiscount is a French marketplace which allows more than 15,000 sellers to have access to over 17 million visitors per month. These sellers are mainly European, of all nationalities, and the majority of them are SMEs, brick-and-mortar shops, who join our marketplace to expand their activity, but also to benefit from the support and expertise of our teams, for example, for logistics or payment services. And actually, consumer protection training is one of the forms of this support. And for Cdiscount, it fulfills two essential objectives. First of all, obviously, support sellers who do not have internal legal function to better understand regulation and improve compliance, and also to ensure better protection for consumers who purchase on our website. So first of all, to this purpose, we've created a help center, which is accessible directly from the seller interface, and which brings together video tutorials and over 200 didactic articles in French and in English. These resources are regularly updated by our legal teams, and they provide links to directly consult the regulatory texts and can refer to other official content, such as that of the SPEAK project, which the Commission knows very well. This help center, it responds to 95% of information requests from sellers, and it receives more than 1,400 visits per day. So it's been very used. In addition of this, because the Help Center, it allows to navigate independently, but we also set up regular communication towards the sellers with a monthly newsletter to summarize new developments, pushing alerts directly in the seller interface when there are changes in regulations, and organizing webinars dedicated to major commercial highlights or new structuring regulations. And finally, because human interaction can be needed, and the Help Center can hardly cover all of the use case that you can encounter in a very general website such as Cdiscount. We have specially trained teams who are available to sellers to respond to their requests, and actually they answer to 88% of the questions within 48 hours. So I would say it's a three-step support that allows Cdiscount to help the sellers. It's a partnership between the marketplace and sellers to enhance consumer protection.
Merci. Bol.com or eMag?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having us here. My name is Joran Palm. I represent Bol. We very much appreciate the opportunity to cooperate with you on this important topic of consumer protection. We have the privilege of welcoming 52,000 partners on our platform, and helping them and providing them with the tools to be successful on our platform is really important to us. That's why we have developed the Bol Partner Academy. And here the partners who sell on our platform can find information that they need to start, mature, and accelerate their businesses. They can find e-learnings and information on important topics, such as our assortment policy, the ways to submit product information, sustainability labels, and CE markings. We will use the coming period to leverage this important academy, to also load this with ways for partners to comply with EU consumer protection legislation. This will include, of course, the pledge we signed today.
Maybe a few words about IMAG. IMAG is an e-commerce platform established in Romania, and we started our operations in Bulgaria and Hungary more than 10 years ago now. And obviously, customer is in our focus, and that is the reason we develop a lot of tools in order to help the participants on the platform, especially sellers, to properly understand and later respect the rights of the customers. That is not always an easy task, as we do have an intermediary role, and we need to take care also about the platform to business regulations and other regulations that somehow put us in the middle. That being said, we developed also a lot of tools for our sellers, e-learning, thousands of videos where sellers can understand and properly apply the law, but in the same time we organize for them webinars, also bring different specialists, including legal advisors, to explain why it is important and how they should treat customers. In the same time, we are still agile and able to answer sellers' questions and try to explain and provide for them tools to be compliant.
Thank you to IMAG. So now I come to the third and last table, and with the third question. So reviews can provide important guidance for consumers and especially help new sellers and products during a launch phase. What more can platforms do to help consumers to distinguish regular consumer reviews from those that are paid and to prevent the fake ones? So for this, I invite to speak Amazon, Rakuten, AliExpress, and Yum. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, and thank you all for organizing this work and this next evolution of the pledge, which is extremely important. Thinking of the subject of reviews, Amazon was one of the pioneers of consumers leaving reviews about products and about services since 1995. In the period since then, we continue to believe that they provide a useful opportunity for transparency about product and service that consumers can provide to each other. Over the last few years, we've begun to see the emergence of an industry of fake review brokers, which masquerade as a legitimate industry, but which are organizing on too large a scale reviews which appear to be real, but which are inauthentic. We believe that while we have and will continue to invest in technologies to tackle and human investigators to tackle the scourge of fake reviews, that this can only properly be tackled through partnership. That is why two things. One, we have founded, we are one of the co-founders of a global authentic reviews pledge with a number of other companies, not only active in commerce, but also hotels, tourism, restaurants in October 2023, and we will continue to work in this coalition. But equally, there needs to be cooperation between public authorities, private actors like ourselves, and consumer groups to identify inauthentic reviews and to enforce, particularly against fake review brokers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amazon. Rakuten, AliExpress, Yum?
Yes, for a few words for Rakuten. Thanks a lot for having us today. As you know, when consumers stand at the crossroads of making a purchasing decision, reviews often serve as the pivotal information that sways the balance toward or away from transaction. That's why this space shouldn't be a fairground for lies or disguised advertising. So in alignment with our commitment, we pledge to augment the transparency of review information and implement more robust moderation measures, empowering consumers with genuine choice. To combat the menace of fake reviews, our dedicated product quality team, who's based in Paris, just like me, my fellow colleagues, endeavors to ensure reviews are relevant. Additionally, we honestly encourage every purchaser to share a personal and insightful perspective on each product acquired. In a broader context, Rakuten views the pledge as a logical progression in our commitment to consumer welfare, building upon a history of voluntary pledges, both at national and European levels. We are confident that this new addition to the landscape of consumer protection will tangibly contribute to creating a more secure e-commerce environment and bolstering consumer confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. AliExpress?
Yes, good morning. Thanks to the Parliament for welcoming us and hosting us today, and also to the Commission for the continued leadership across these pledges. And it's been an honor for AliExpress to be a part of this since the beginning, and we remain committed to continuing to look at additional areas where we can all work together on digital fairness and consumer protection. With respect to your question specifically about fake reviews and how to help consumers with that. On AliExpress, you actually have to have actually made a purchase and placed an order and paid for a product in order to be even eligible to issue a review. And we found that this has been very helpful in limiting the situations where people can provide fraudulent reviews or fake reviews of various things. So you have to actually have been a consumer with a verified transaction, placed the order, and made that across our platform in order to comment specifically on that product. We also have measures where we also double check that the product was actually delivered and that someone can physically actually have a product to actually provide a review on that. We also have incorporated the reviews about situations where sellers may fraudulently try to push up their products or various things. And we've incorporated this into our regular due diligence across fraudulent activities across our platform on seller responsibilities, and have some pretty severe penalties if we find a seller has tried to initiate through false purchases or some other way to try to generate a review that would confuse consumers. This also discourages against spontaneous reviews or things kind of flashing up all of a sudden and then being taken down, and we found that this has been quite helpful. But we think this area is an area where, like a lot of the marketplaces and platforms up here, continues to be a place that fraudulent folks are trying to come up with new ways, like in other particular areas, to try to get around our tools and various things. And so this is an area where we are pleased that the continued focus and the measurements and aspects around these things are going to be important under this pledge to continue to help us. And so we are very pleased again to be participating in this digital fairness consumer protection pledge and appreciate this opportunity to be a part of it again. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the last speaker?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and so nice to see everyone in the room here. So just a few words from me. It was not a surprise for everyone in the room that policies for customers shall be as clear as possible. The way to file a claim or ask any questions for customers related to reviews, of course, as well, it shall also be as easy as possible. But I guess we live in the era when artificial intelligence actually comes into play. And as a general customer, you will be surprised how artificial intelligence created reviews similar to those who created by human beings. And I guess we don't have privilege, we never had, but especially now, we don't have a privilege to have just one detection policy and one detection mechanism for decades. And we have to just pay closer look to how artificial intelligence develops. That's what we do at Joom. We try to implement and improve our detection technology to fight these artificial intelligence related and created by that fake reviews. So I guess we have a whole room for improvement there. So maybe that would be something that we all shall discuss and focus on in upcoming years. Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed, that's something that we need to work on. Thank you to you. So I will now ask you to proceed to the corner. Mr. Commissaire Reinders will come with you for the photo, and we're going to have this photograph and before we go for coffee break. Thank you.